You are faster than almost every predator that ever hunted you. Not in a sprint. Over distance. A deer can outrun you in the first 30 seconds. After 3 hours, in the heat of the day, that deer is staggering. You are still walking. For most of human history, this single fact was the difference between starving and eating. But speed was never the real weapon. Your ancestors did not outrun animals. They outthought them. For roughly 2 million years, hominins hunted without bows, without metal, without anything you would recognize as a weapon today. And yet animals far stronger, far faster, and far better armed than any human kept walking straight into death. Why? Because a trap does not need to be strong. It needs to understand its prey better than the prey understands itself. Let's start with the obvious question. How do you catch something that can break your spine with one kick? You don't catch it. You let the landscape catch it for you. Anthropologist Richard Lee, in his 1963 study of the Jew/Hoansi people of the Kalahari, documented something that overturned how scientists thought about early human survival. Hunting, the dramatic part, the part with spears and chasing, supplied less than a third of the group's food. Most calories came from something far quieter: gathering, trapping, and reading the land. The Jew/Hoansi could track a single animal's footprint through grass, identify its species, its size, its health, and how many hours old the trail was, just by the depth and shape of a print in dust. This is the part modern people miss. A trap is not a device. A trap is a prediction. Every animal on Earth runs on patterns it cannot break. It drinks from the same water source. It returns to the same den. It flees in a direction shaped by instinct. A river bends sharply around a rocky outcrop, narrowing the path animals used to reach water. Early hunters noticed this. Over weeks, maybe months, they watch herds funnel through that one gap, again and again, because the terrain gives them no other choice. So the humans dig a pit, deep enough that an animal cannot jump out, narrow enough that it cannot turn around inside it. They cover the opening with branches, grass, a thin layer of soil. Then they wait. This is not luck. This is geometry, patience, and an intimate knowledge of an animal's psychology, built over generations and passed down as oral memory long before anyone could write it down. Archaeological evidence backs this up directly. At sites across Europe, researchers have uncovered the remains of game drive systems, long stone walls built in V-shapes that funnel herds of reindeer or horses toward cliffs or pits. Some of these structures, like the so-called desert kites found across the Middle East, stretch for kilometers. Kilometers. Built without trucks, without surveying equipment, by people coordinating across what may have been dozens of family groups, all working toward a single ambush point. That is not primitive. That is logistics. Here's where it gets stranger. Animals had no concept of being outsmarted. A wolf understands a chasing predator. It does not understand a hole that wasn't there yesterday. A horse understands a charging lion. It does not understand a rope snare triggered by its own forward motion, snapping a bent sapling upright and yanking it into the air by one leg before it even registers a threat. This is the core trick, and it shows up again and again across every continent humans settled. The deadhead snare. The pitfall trap. The deadfall, a heavy log balanced on a trigger stick, baited so an animal's own hunger pulls the weight down on top of it. None of these require the hunter to be present. None of these require strength. They require understanding an animal's habits so completely that its own body becomes the mechanism of its capture. There's a deeper layer here too. Researcher Polly Wiesner, who spent decades studying hunter-gatherer societies including the Jew/Hoansi, documented how knowledge itself was the real technology. Stories told around fires weren't just entertainment. They were data transfer. Which animals moved where in which season? Which traps worked on which species? Which mistakes got a hunter killed last winter? A trap built by a 16-year-old today existed because a grandmother described, in vivid storytelling detail decades earlier, exactly how a wounded eland behaves when it's cornered. So let's reconstruct a single hunt. It's late autumn. The air has turned sharp enough to see your breath. A group has spent days tracking a small herd of horses moving toward a narrow valley pass, the only route through before deep snow closes the high ground. The hunters already know this pass. Their parents used it. Their grandparents used it. Along both sides, low stone walls have been built over years, almost invisible now, half buried in scrub, funneling wider and wider like a throat that narrows to a single point. At that point, a cliff edge, or a pit, or a line of waiting. This is the counterintuitive twist. The smarter and more social an animal was, the easier it often was to predict, and the easier it was to trap. Pack and herd instincts, built over millions of years to provide safety in numbers, became a vulnerability the moment a species capable of long-term planning started watching. Humans weren't winning because they were the strongest animal in the valley. They were winning because they were the only animal capable of imagining tomorrow. Now mirror that onto something modern. You still build traps, just not for animals. A loan with rising interest disguised as a low monthly payment. A notification designed to pull your thumb back to a screen at the exact moment your attention dips. An algorithm that has studied your habits with more patience than any Ice Age hunter ever studied a herd. The mechanism is identical. Understand the pattern of a creature better than the creature understands itself. Then build a structure so quiet the creature walks into it on its own. The traps changed. The principle didn't. Your ancestors survived ice ages, megafauna, and famine without iron, without firearms, without anything sharper than a napped stone and a length of braided sinew. What they had instead was patience measured in generations, and a willingness to study the world so closely that the world's own patterns became their best tool. You are still faster than almost every predator that ever hunted you. Not because of your legs. Because somewhere behind your eyes is the same machine that once watched a riverbank for weeks, said nothing, and waited for the herd to come home.